Welcome into the Football Guys Fantasy Football Show. We are taking a look at the must target or kind of target or just probably should get them for insurance purposes players that you want to get off of your waiver wire before week 6. And Dave, we're going to be breaking down how important these players are going to be going forward, how important they could be next week, and give you a little bit more context as opposed to just saying, go add this guy, spend all your fab, and we move on. So Dave, we like to do this in a draft order. We go back and forth. You have the first pick. Who are you going with here?
Tyrone Tracy. We saw it yesterday, what he can do with a bigger opportunity. And we knew Devin Singletary was going to be out. A lot of people were clamoring to get Tyrone Tracy in their lineups. But if you watch the game, and I know you do, Alfredo, I was sweating on that first drive because it sure seemed like they wanted Eric Ray to be the guy. But then Tyrone Tracy came in on the second drive, added an explosive element that this team was really missing without Malik Neighbors yesterday. And he looked great. 20 opportunities, 130 scrimmage yards. And this is a guy that I've really liked since the draft process. And a lot of people overlooked him because of his age, but we're playing for 2024 here. This isn't dynasty season. We're trying to win 2024 championships. We know that when Tyrone Tracy Jr. is on the field, he is going to be able to make explosive plays, which we saw plenty of yesterday. At worst, you're looking at a guy who is a potential handcuff for Devin Singletary if he misses any time. At best, Tyrone Tracy did enough in yesterday's matchup that he carves out a role even when Singletary does return. So hopefully you can get some standalone flex value as we continue navigating through buys and injuries for these next few weeks. But if Devin Singletary does need to miss any time, we don't know how this groin injury is going to linger or anything like that. If Devin Singletary isn't playing in any given matchup, we can fire Tyrone Tracy up with absolute confidence after what we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and you got to think that Giants GM Joe Shane is really feeling himself here after all these good picks. Malik Neighbors, their safety, Newbin, and now Tyrone Tracy, who this was the team that they lose Saquon. That was the big headline. They don't go out and sign a big flashy running back. They draft a guy late, and he ends up looking great in his first start. And what stood out to me, Dave, he gets 18 carries, but then only just 2 targets and 1 catch for a guy that played so much wide receiver in college, very similar to an Antonio Gibson type player. I was really surprised that usage wasn't quite there. Maybe that changes in the weeks to come, but I do think that he has done enough to carve out a big role with Devin Singletary on the field. And I mean, I think he could actually potentially take over this role as the season goes on.
Am I crazy in thinking that he's kind of a dual handcuff in a way? Like we saw the upside if Devin Singletary has to miss any time, but if Wan'Dale Robinson has to miss any time, I think that we've seen enough. He's got the pass catching upside, he's got the burst, he's got the tackle breaking ability. This might be a guy that is more of a utility player. It's not just a 1-to-1 if Singletary has to miss, if Wan'Dale Robinson has to miss, if anybody needs to miss time. I mean, Tyrone Tracy is a versatile enough player that I think he's done enough to earn a pretty consistent role in this offense after yesterday's outing.
Yeah, man, Giants offense. So it's so weird to say they're looking good. The team looks good.
Daniel Jones doesn't look too bad this year. It's crazy to say. Had a couple stinkers, but he's had 18 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. The Giants are kind of humming right now.
Yeah, yeah, and then their defense, it's not a cupcake either. I mean, it's not.
Right.
It's wild. It's wild. We're going to keep going here, but before we do, I just want to remind everybody, you got a couple ways that you can enjoy this show. First is here on YouTube. So if you're watching, give this show a like, comment down below with any of your waiver wire questions, and obviously make sure you are subscribed to the channel here because we're bringing you our show 4 days a week. We've got the audio show as well, 5 days a week over on Apple and Spotify. And then every Sunday morning, we've got the Sunday morning live start sit show with Joey Wright, Jagger May, Adam Hutchison, Jeff Bell, so many other Football Guys staffers. So make sure you are here for that. Dave, I'm going to go with my pick here. And I think this is going to be a lot of people's top priority waiver wire ad. And you and I both kind of did the same thing as we were looking at this guy, we started to dig deeper on Ty Chandler. And he's available in 64% of leagues. And the reason that everyone is going to be putting Ty Chandler up at the top of their waiver wire priority is because we're waiting on MRI news on Aaron Jones, who it's being called a hip injury, but also various doctors have said they're worried about potential soft tissue injury. This could be groin, hamstring. It looks like it's a re-injury of something that's happened before. But in the same breath, a lot of these same doctors are saying he's probably back for week 7. And the Vikings have a bye here in week 6. Week 7, they go up against the Detroit Lions, which have been one of the worst matchups for fantasy running backs. So Ty Chandler here, I don't know if there's a whole lot of immediate value. I wanted to pick this player, one, because I think I think Ty Chandler is a very talented player. I think it's a big opportunity if Aaron Jones is to miss more time than just this, these 2 weeks. But I also want to talk about this because this is going to be a very popular player on the waiver wire. And I just don't know that we should be going out and blowing all of our fab on Ty Chandler. I do think he's very much worth a roster spot. I think what's going to happen is you're going to see a lot of people in your leagues go out, spend a ton of money on Ty Chandler, realize there's a buy, have to drop him at some point, especially when they find out that Aaron Jones is coming back for week 7 against Detroit. And then he's going to be available for you again within a week or 2 weeks. And honestly, he's a player that I would want to hold on to for the rest of the season, especially if I could do it for cheap. So yeah, I would put a conservative bid out there for Ty Chandler as an insurance back on my roster. But honestly, I think he's just going to be available for you in another week or two.
Yeah, I feel like it's very paradoxical right now with Ty Chandler because in your deep leagues, he's not going to be available. And
No.
in your shallow leagues where he is available, it's a shallow league where you probably can't afford to hold a prospective, possible, maybe starting RB2 during bye week. So I think you did a good job at least addressing this because we know Ty Chandler, like everybody saw the Aaron Jones injury. He's getting up there in age. Ty Chandler is a young, exciting player. But I think paradoxical is just the best way to describe it. Like I
Yeah.
said, deep leagues, he's not going to be available. Shallow leagues where he is available, it's going to be tough to be able to hold on to him until you can actually get some value, if you even can, in week 7 against a really tough Detroit matchup. So Ty Chandler is one of those guys in shallow leagues where he is available that I'm probably not bidding more than a few dollars because I think somebody out there is going to splash 30 to 40% of their fab. And then you're looking at potential dead weight for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of landmines when we talk about just dropping a player and letting someone else on your fantasy roster pick them up. This guy's already probably available. So, all right, Dave, go to our next pick here. This is going to be your second pick, third player overall.
And this guy could easily be the top guy of the week, depending on the leagues that you're in. And the tight end position has been extremely volatile this year. We don't really know what we're getting on a week in, week out basis. The guys that we paid up for aren't doing well. We're getting these random boom games from guys late in the rankings that weren't even going drafted. But Tucker Kraft right now, man, he is looking really good. Overall, in scoring, he is the tight end 3 right now. Only George Kittle and Brock Bowers are outscoring him. And you got to remember that Tucker Kraft played 2 of his games with Malik Willis, where he had very little production. So, this is a really good pass catcher. He's got great after the catch abilities, as we saw on 2 different plays yesterday. And there was a lot of excitement for Luke Musgrave, but outside of 12 personnel, Luke Musgrave is rarely on the field. When he is on the field, they're asking him to block more than anything else, where Tucker Kraft, he's their full-time pass catching tight end. He's averaging 7 targets per game over the last 2 weeks with Jordan Love. We were all surprised by the usage in week 1 where he out-targeted and outperformed Luke Musgrave. And I think that's just the way that we see this tight end room playing out going forward, is that Tucker Kraft is the tight end 1 in Green Bay. There's a lot of ambiguity with the wide receivers and how those targets get distributed among that deep room. But I think the one certainty in this team is that Tucker Kraft is going to continue being a full-time player. He's going to continue getting his.
Yeah, this reminds me so much of last year with Trey McBride, a guy going into his second year, another tight end on the roster, kind of not sure where all the targets are going in the offense, but we know it when the offense is healthy, it's good. Now, this is a little bit different here because we kind of got this interesting discount on Tucker Kraft when Jordan Love was out. We weren't quite sure what to do. I think a lot of us are, myself included, we're looking at Luke Musgrave and saying this could be the guy this year because Tucker Kraft had a pectoral injury.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is. He looks phenomenal, Dave. And he's doing all the things that we want out of tight ends. Like you always talk about, he's not having to line up in line too much and do blocking. He's actually out there running routes. He's getting a very high snap percentage. He's out in the slot. He's working out wide. He's doing a little bit of everything. This is not just a thing with Romeo Dobbs being out and Christian Watson being out, because he was doing this while those guys were active as well. So I'm really excited about what Tucker Kraft could be doing for the rest of the year. I think at the tight end position, with how bad tight end is, I genuinely think Tucker Kraft can be a league winner.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy. I mean, it feels like Sam Laporta last year where, he started getting some production early in the season. And then before you knew it, he was a plug and play tight end. With how bleak the landscape is right now for tight ends, it's not crazy to think that going forward, Tucker Kraft is going to be a must start guy. I mean, I haven't done my week 6 rankings yet. It is still Monday morning. I usually turn the page to the next week tomorrow morning. So that's when I'll start fleshing out my rankings. But it's going to be pretty tough to keep Tucker Kraft outside of my top 6 with what he's done over the last couple of weeks. And, we're seeing Mark Andrews fall off, the inconsistencies from Kyle Pitts. So many other premier tight ends are injured and underperforming that I think Tucker Kraft just works into must-start territory going forward.
Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite pick of the entire episode. I should have talked about him earlier in the show because Tucker Kraft, man, it's just a really good waiver wire pickup. If he's available in your league, do it. Just
Yep.
drop a bag on him.
Yep.
I'm going to go to another guy here. I think, Dave, where a lot of us are getting very frustrated with picking up these wide receivers, expecting that they're going to be getting targets, and then you get Dontavian Wicks, and then you're kind of sitting there with players or Demarcus Robinson. And I think we're at the point in the season where a lot of what we're going to be seeing on waivers is just pick up these running backs that have phenomenal contingent upside, or they've already carved out a role for themselves. And one of the guys I'm noticing that with already, and I think not just me noticing it, but everyone has seen it, Tank Bigsby for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is a little tough to gauge at this moment. He's been producing, so much of it has been coming on these breakaway runs, 58, 65 yards. He's getting some big plays here. He's not really getting any targets. Nothing crazy is happening for him in the passing game, but we are seeing a lot of running usage. He led the backfield in snaps this past week. He doubled Travis Etienne's carries last week. And Doug Peterson, he hasn't been very reliable for us as a coach. He doesn't seem like there's any rhyme or reason for the way he's doing things. So what I worry about here, and
But
this
he
is
hasn't
another guy
lost the
said,
locker room. I just want that to be very clear, Alfredo.
stop
He
saying
has
I've lost the
not
locker room.
lost the locker room. He is in full command.
Yes. Jeez. If there's a guy with any less command in the NFL, I'd love to see him right now. I'd love to find that guy. It does kind of look like he's going into these games without an idea of who he really wants to get the ball to, without a game plan. It's just sort of, let's ride the hot hand. And what ends up happening is you get a Tank Bigsby big time run, and okay, you're going to get more carries this game. And that's how that kind of shapes out. So it is going to be really hard to decide when to start him. But the good thing here is that if you are in one of those leagues where you've lost your running backs, you kind of just have to plug in Tank Bigsby as an RB2 or an RB3 flex consideration just because of the usage that he's getting. He's always a threat to fall into the end zone. And if Travis Etienne misses any time, Tank Bigsby immediately becomes a top 12 option week in and week out. So I will say this, and I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth on purpose. I do want to give the context here because I think that Ty Chandler and Tank Bigsby are going to be a lot of people's top waiver wire ads going forward. And I do worry a little bit about Tank Bigsby. Okay. After next week, Jacksonville has one of the hardest remaining strength of schedules for fantasy running backs. It is the third hardest schedule for a guy that we can't predict when he's getting the ball. And for an offense that's not scoring a lot, it does worry me a little bit. So this is another guy. I'll put a conservative offer out there on a bid for Tank Bigsby, but I'm not going overboard.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. He falls into the same bucket as a lot of other valuable tight end or valuable running back handcuffs. If the opportunity comes there, you want to plug him in. And if it doesn't, and he's splitting touches with Travis Etienne, you could be looking at a potential 2-3 points in your lineup if you take the risk on starting him, or he rips off a big play, scores a touchdown, and you feel like a genius for putting him in your lineup. So that's where we're at this point in the season. We're going to see the occasional wide receivers and tight ends pop up on waivers here and there, but it's no secret how I play fantasy football. I want my bench loaded with these guys, these injury away running backs that can boom in value. Either you're getting somebody that you can plug in as a flex or an RB2 on any given week, or you're getting somebody who sees a huge boom in value that you can use on the trade market to address another position of need. So just kind of big picture as we're talking about this, I'm talking about 3 guys today or 4 guys today. 3 of the 4 guys that I'm talking about are injury away running backs. You, Alfredo, are talking about 4 guys today, and 2 of them are injury away running backs. So this is the point in the season where we kind of know how the pecking orders are shaking out in the passing game, and we really want to start getting those guys that we know are their team's clear-cut RB2s.
There's the theme for the show. Just go find these running backs with growing roles and high contingent upside. I will say, Tank Bigsby, his role is growing each week. This
Yep.
was his highest snap percentage, highest carries of the season. If there is some shining light in here, a silver lining, it's that the role continues to increase for him. Dave, go to our next player here. Who are you going to pick?
Blake Corum, and I'm so excited that I finally get to talk about this guy. He was one of my draft crushes, just a really hard-nosed running back, and through the first few weeks, he was pretty much relegated to special teams duties only, as Ronnie Rivers was the very clear-cut RB2. And I said I wasn't really buying into it. I said, maybe Ronnie Rivers is better in pass pro and getting the RB2 touches, but I think that if something happens to Kyron Williams, Blake Corum is still going to be the next man up to take over those abilities. And now we see it a month into the season. Ronnie Rivers didn't get any offensive work, didn't get a single touch on offense. Meanwhile, Blake Corum had 6 touches. He was down at the 1 yard line, really close to scoring a touchdown. I mean, make no doubt about this. I'm not saying that Blake Corum is overtaking Kyron Williams. That's not what I'm insinuating at all. But he's done enough through the first month of the season that now he is trusted with the RB2 duties, something that is very rare to see Sean McVay put the belief on for a rookie running back. So, not going to have much standalone value, but Kyron Williams is a guy who has gotten dinged up dating back to his college career. Usually misses a handful of games. So if he does need to miss any time, Blake Corum looked great yesterday with a few touches that he did have. Everything that you saw him doing at Michigan, running through tacklers, keeping his shoulder pads down, finding the hole, the vision, the patience, just doing all of it. Blake Corum's skills immediately translated to an NFL field. So this is another injury away guy. There's no standalone value with Blake Corum. You aren't putting him in your week 7 lineup after the bye and hoping he can siphon away work from Kyron Williams. You're picking him up and you're stashing him on your bench, knowing that if something happens to Kyron Williams, you're getting a top 3, top 5 weekly option in Blake Corum.
There it is. Contingent upside. Like there's really nothing else to add there. If I think you tweeted it out a couple weeks ago and it was met with the normal venom that we get on Twitter, which is you said if you've already dropped Blake Corum, that you didn't really draft him for the right reasons. You didn't understand drafting Blake Corum.
And
And
people were beside themselves when they saw that, like, he didn't get any touches week 1. Yeah, he's a rookie running back, and he's playing behind a guy, Ronnie Rivers, who's been in the system for years and understands this system. Of course,
I'm
he's going to
still
get
not
the first
convinced
looks.
that I'm still not convinced that Ronnie Rivers is a real person, that he's not just an AI running back. All right, I'm going to give you my pick here. Next guy on here, and you know what? I'm willing to throw a good amount of money on Jalen Tolbert, wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of this is just because I still continue to believe in Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys passing attack that's there. And Jalen Tolbert's kind of slowly but surely taking over this wide receiver 2 role. It wasn't just about Brandon Cooks not being there this week. Tolbert led the team in targets. He had the game-winning touchdown, so we know he had the big performance, but he's already had more receptions and more receiving yards than Brandon Cooks prior to this game. And so Brandon Cooks going on IR and being there for 3 more weeks is really opening the door here for Jalen Tolbert. He's had double-digit fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. It's kind of hard to just relegate this back to being behind Brandon Cooks. And I do believe that Dak Prescott is a guy in this passing attack, is one that can support 3 to potentially even 4 different players through the air. Next week, they've got Detroit. That's a great game to start Jalen Tolbert. So if you do need a wide receiver 3 that you have to plug into your lineup, or a flex player that you need to plug into your lineup, going up against Detroit next week is a phenomenal matchup. After that, they do have the bye. But I'm looking at the upcoming schedule here, Dave. 4 of their next 6 opponents for the Dallas Cowboys receivers are in the top 10 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So with Brandon Cooks being out, Jalen Tolbert being in, and that transition kind of already happening, I love the early returns that we can get here on Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah, and we talked about this a few weeks ago when I was recommending picking up Jalen Tolbert, that, from South Alabama, small school. Sometimes these guys do take a few years to kind of get comfortable at the NFL level. And we've seen it this year that Jalen Tolbert gets more and more comfortable at the NFL level. Alfredo, I know it was late last night with the delay and you being out on the East Coast. Were you able to finish the game? I know a lot of people fell asleep early.
Absolutely not.
Did you?
So I
Did you?
looked at the clock. There was about 10 minutes left in the
Yeah.
game, and it was midnight. And I was like, you know what? No,
I mean,
no.
I'm out here on Mountain Time, and I was dozing off towards the end of that game. It's a long freaking day of football. All right, I had to wake up. Kickoff for the London game was at 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time, and then I didn't finish that game until almost 11 p.m. I don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth, but that's a lot of football, man. That was a long, exhausting day. But at the very end, I don't know if you saw, they targeted Jalen Tolbert in the end zone, and he went down. Um, pretty hard and stood
did you
up.
see the interview
Yes.
that Tyler
Yes.
Smith did?
That's what I was getting at there. I mean, like, Emily, my wife, she's asking, she's like, "What's going on? Like, did he hurt himself?" I'm like, "Babe, look at what he's grabbing. Look at the way he's walking." Like, every man watching this game knows exactly what happened. I don't know
Took
if
a
he got
shot.
hit with the football or what happened, but I mean, he was limping. They had to call an injury timeout so they could get him back in the game so he could make the touchdown catch. That's just awesome heart, gumption,
Sure.
nuts, whatever you want to call it, that Jalen Tolbert was able to exhibit yesterday.
Yeah, no, it was nuts, man. It was nuts. Dude, the Tyler Smith interview was
Yeah, he's
so
like,
funny, man. He's
sprained
like,
his effing nuts.
yeah,
Good stuff,
he's
man.
so
That's
good,
just
man.
Jalen Tolbert, definitely a football guy.
Nothing makes you earn the respect of your teammates and the people watching the game than doing that. Taking a shot like that. It's nuts, man. It's nuts. All right. Go to your final pick here in the waiver wire draft.
You'll never guess this, Alfredo.
I'll
I'm
never
going
get
to talk about a rookie running back with
shocker.
contingent upside. Can you believe
What?
it? Can
Oh
you
my
believe
god.
it?
It's crazy.
Jaylen Wright. I mean, these are a lot of guys that I talked about in the preseason that we were disappointed with the usage and the opportunity and the efficiency early on in the season. But now we are a month into the season. These guys are starting to look a little bit better. Devon Achane got knocked out of yesterday's game early with a concussion. We don't know if he's going to miss anytime or a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. But Jaylen Wright stepped in and got 13 carries after Devon Achane went down. He was splitting touches with Raheem Mostert. The majority of the touches, 19 of those carries, went Raheem Mostert's way as opposed to 13 going Jaylen Wright's way. But Jaylen Wright had more yards on fewer opportunities. He had a few breakaway runs. Alfredo, it's something we've been talking about since April. We really, really like Jaylen Wright. He is tailor made for this Miami offense. He's got the big play upside and the breakaway speed that Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Raheem Mostert and all of the other playmakers on this offense have. And it's only a matter of time before the opportunities come there. At this point in his career, I don't think it's crazy to say that Jaylen Wright can do more on the football field than Raheem Mostert can. Raheem Mostert had a handful of nice plays, but overall, you look at his body of work from yesterday and it was relatively inefficient. Well, Jaylen Wright was the one that was beating defenders to the edge and turning up field and making the big plays. So, again, a guy that probably won't have a lot of standalone value as long as Devon Achane is healthy, and Devon Achane could be back as early as next week. But we expect this offense to be better in week 7 or 8 when Tua Tagovailoa returns. And you're looking at a guy who is an injury away from a big role on what we expect to be a good offense going forward. So Jaylen Wright, a guy right now still available in almost 80% of leagues, and absolutely worth a pickup and a stash, even if he doesn't have any value in your lineup at the moment.
It's funny because as we're saying this, we keep talking about these rookie running backs or these running backs with contingent upside. And it's so funny because all these guys remain on the waiver wire in 60, 70, 80, 90% of leagues. And we talk about drafting them throughout the offseason in some of your last rounds. And it almost feels like you just don't even have to do that in the shallow leagues. You don't even have to consider doing that if you know that they have to be an injury away. Unless, I mean, I guess I understand the whole thing of doing it with the insurance policy that a player can get injured in week 1, right? It happens. But it's just so funny that we're sitting here of like, these are the guys you got to draft with your last picks. And in week 4, week 5, week 6, we're saying these are the players you need to go pick up on the waiver wire. We have such a goldfish brain, man. Like we want to drop players, move on as quick as we can. I understand it's a weekly game, but it's kind of nuts.
And how many times have we talked, not even this offseason, but last offseason and through last year, where we say that like you need to exercise patience with these rookies.
Mhm.
Don't be the guy who dropped Justin Jefferson after 2 weeks. Like, these rookies, they take time, and we see them just get better and better as every single week goes on. So, yeah, I mean, if you're drafting rookies, it could be a bumpy start through the first 3 to 5 weeks of the season, but it's only going to get better, and you just want to hold on to these guys.
All right, Dave, I got a fun one here for the last pick. This is just, it's all vibes. The vibes are feeling good. I want to throw a few of my fab budget dollars on Rashod Bateman, wide
Shoddy
receiver,
D.
wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens. He's available in 87% of leagues on Sleeper. And everything for the Ravens is really starting to look up. They've won three games in a row. Rashod Bateman has been getting more involved. He's got a touchdown in 2 of the last 3 games, double-digit fantasy points in 2 of the last 3 games, Dave. This game was a little different. I mean, obviously it was a shootout. It goes to overtime against the Bengals, so that can inflate some of the numbers a little bit, but 8 targets for Rashod Bateman. Normally I would say this is kind of a one-off thing or it's a fluke, but the Ravens offense just hasn't been normal this year. We haven't had normal Mark Andrews. We haven't really had a consistent Zay Flowers. It kind of seems like we might not really know where the ball is going all the time. And so if there's a guy that I can just spend $1 on the waiver wire, or there's actually many leagues where you can just put a 0 in for your waiver wire bid and get them. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people kind of look at Rashod Bateman the same way many people have looked at Kyle Pitts for years, as he's burned me in the past. I'm not even going to roster that player. And I think there's not going to be a lot of people putting a waiver wire bid on him. And I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it because you look at the upcoming schedule, 2 of the next 3 opponents are top 7 in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. With Lamar Jackson heating up, this Ravens offense looking better and better. Yeah, I would not be surprised. And also, Dave, it's not just that these teams that they're going up against allow a lot of points to wide receivers, it's that those teams can hold their own scoring as well. They've got Washington next week and then Tampa in week 7. So we're potentially looking at a really nice trend upwards for Rashod Bateman and the Ravens passing attack. So yeah, I just want a piece of it. I want the good vibes. I'm here for it.
Yeah, we haven't really seen much through the air from Baltimore so far because they have just been dominating their opponents every single week. That by like halfway through the second quarter, they're like, "All right, Derrick Henry time, no reason to throw anymore." And then we finally saw it last week where they played well, not last week, yesterday. They played a formidable opponent, went into overtime. It was a close game. He was forced to throw the ball. And wouldn't you know it, Rashod Bateman sets a season high in targets. So it's going to be tough. I mean, if there's one thing that we know about this Baltimore Ravens team through the first month of the season, it's that their playmakers are going to be very game script dependent. When they've got the lead, Derrick Henry's giving you 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. When they're playing from behind, Mark Andrews is going to come to life, and Zay Flowers is going to get peppered, and Rashod Bateman's going to find the end zone. So I think this is one of those where we know there's a lot of really talented players on this offense, and might be a little bit of a cop out, but I think going forward with the Ravens, what I'm going to be doing is looking at how Vegas projects this game to go, and that's going to kind of bleed into how I'm ranking these Ravens on any given week. If it's expected to be a close game, or if the Ravens are underdogs, Rashod Bateman is going to kind of work into the flex territory, and in games where they should easily outperform their opponents, Derrick Henry is the wide receiver or the running back 1 in the week, and you can't even really think about any of the receivers.
Yeah, I listen, we get to the point here, like we've said, you want the running backs contingent upside. I'm just going to take the pass catchers that are in good offenses. That's that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at this point in the season. Dave, we've got a bunch of other players here that we did not draft. Players left out of this. Some of them maybe just not as good of options, or they were just players that we necessarily didn't want to talk about. But some of the other players to add here, and I want you to just pick one of these guys off this list. I'm going to read them off real quick here. Kirk Cousins, Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, Alan Lazard, Tyler Allgeier, Roschon Johnson, Tutu Atwell, Jordan Whittington, Michael Wilson, Tyler Conklin, Isaac Guerendo, Alec Pierce, Daniel Jones, and Ray McCloud. Is there a name that stands out to you?
I mean, Tyler Algier is the easy, obvious one. I think that he's only going to be available in like 40 something percent of leagues. So if you're in a league where Tyler Algier is available, I don't get it. I don't know why. Pick him up. But I think of all the names, like the actionable names that are available, Jordan Whittington, man, did it
Yeah.
again. Led the team
Yeah.
in snaps, routes, targets, receptions. Um, Almost had a touchdown that he came up just short on, but 12 targets is pretty exciting usage. Of course, you might not have the luxury of holding him through the week 6 bye, and they're saying that Cooper Cup should be back in week 7 after the bye. So I think if Cooper Cup returns in week 7, we're not looking at Whittington as a guy that you can really plug in as a spot start anymore. But if for whatever reason Cooper Cup's injury is lingering longer than expected and he has to miss week 7, we're looking at Whittington very much so in the streaming discussion again.
The people are demanding more Jordan Whittington. Dave, you know what the people want. That's all it is. You just
I
know.
gotta say, Tyler Conklin too. Keep kind of throwing him in.
I don't trust a Jet right now. The
Over the
fact
last
that
3 weeks,
Wilson can
averaging
get
7.7 targets per game over the last 3 weeks. I mean, 9 targets
oh,
last week. The usage has been there.
it's all fun and games until Devontae Adams is on the Jets. Garrett Wilson got 22 targets.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, Rodgers threw the ball 54 times. I actually looked it up yesterday because I was like, 22 targets is a lot. Aaron Rodgers has never thrown that many targets to anybody. He had 21 targets to Devontae Adams back in a 2015 game, but um, is there like a more disappointing? Like, yeah, you got 100 yards and a touchdown, but like 22 targets and all you can muster up is 100 yards and a touchdown. Come on, Garrett.
As a Dolphins fan, there's been nothing just more pleasurable than watching the Jets implode upon themselves. There was a meme posted yesterday of just like it's a thing where it's like the guy that's like looking at the balloon that's really excited, and then
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
the evil thing dragging him back, and it's like me looking at the Jets imploding, but also the Dolphins being really bad at that pulling me back.
It's very rarely that I can relate with an NFL player, but Aaron Rodgers on his hands and knees crawling along the sideline, I was like, "Yep, that would be me if I had to step out on an NFL field. That's exactly what I'd look like after one play."
Yeah, that's wild because he went from basically being it looked like his career was over. It
Mhm.
looked like it was just another catastrophic injury, and it's like, oh no, I'm back in.
Yeah,
I'm back in. Here we go.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't I don't think I don't think Bobby Sala's long for that job there or Nate
No.
Hackett. It's not gonna be pretty there.
All they do with
Uh
Rodgers, though, they just put him in the blue medical tent, throw some noise canceling headphones, just 3 minutes of Dolphins mating, and
Ayahuasca,
he's ready to get back in there.
Dolphins mating. I'm gonna give one final player here because we always get the person that's like, all of these players are taken in my league. Do something for the deep leagues. Here we go. I added this guy to the list last minute. Ray McCloud. He is
Oh,
available in 93% of fantasy leagues. If he's not available in your league, I just don't know what to tell you. Okay, this is like a wide receiver 6 to add on many fantasy rosters. But over the last few weeks, Dave, like he's actually been pretty good. 6 receptions in back to back games, or excuse me, 6 receptions and 50 plus yards in back to back games here. He's out on the field all the time. This isn't a guy who's just has a small role where you need a player to be injured. Over the last 4 games, 100% snaps, 95% snaps, 98, 98. Ray McCloud is out there on the field. Kirk Cousins has been actually targeting him quite a bit. And they're doing it in ways where they're trying to get him out into open space so he can make a big play. It's not your
mhm.
typical slot targets where he's just kind of catching a 4 yard curl and falling down. He's getting screens, he's getting wheel routes, he's doing a lot of fun stuff, even moving out of the backfield. So that Falcons offense, they looked great this last week. If they are getting it together and Kirk Cousins is getting it together, listen, like I said, I want pass catchers on good offenses. If this is a guy that's available in 93% of leagues and he's doing something in those deeper leagues where you need a wide receiver 6 that you can plug into your 3 wide receiver, 3 flex lineup, PPR scoring format, there you go. Ray McCloud.
Last piece of actionable advice I'll give for this show, Alfredo. You drop Mark Andrews. I know we said it last week, but
Do it
he's
again.
still rostered in a ton of leagues. You
Pick
can
him up
drop
so you
him.
can drop him again.
Uh, I mean, last week, like we finally saw the Ravens forced into a negative game script where they were forced to throw the ball, and Andrews had 5 targets,
Hmm.
55% snap share. Charlie Kolar is the one catching the touchdowns here. I mean, 3
Actually,
touchdowns
really
to tight
hilarious.
ends in this game and 0 to Mark Andrews. It's freaking over.
And what was so disheartening is that Charlie Kohler has such a similar it's 88 and Mark
I
Andrews is
know, and they
89.
have like the same build. It's like, oh, Charlie
It's
Kolar.
just a big lumberjack white
Yeah,
guy wearing a double eight number, and then you're super excited, and you realize, no, that's nobody. Never
yeah,
mind. Helps no one. Yeah.
yeah. I think we can cut him at this point, and if he somehow gets healthy and goes back to the Mark Andrews of old, I'll live with it. But I don't want him taking up space on my bench anymore.
Yeah. So there you go. Cut Mark Andrews and go pick up all these players we talked about here today, or don't. It's your choice. It's your team. That's going to be it for us today. We're going to be back again tomorrow and throughout the week. As
Joey's
always,
joining us tomorrow, right? Joey Wright.
ew, Joey Wright.
Yeah, Joey Wright. That'll be fun.
We got to check in on him, man. Like he is, first of all, he's out sick today or this weekend. And then Florida, we got a hurricane coming. So
Uh
there's
oh.
there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on here. So we got to go check on our guy before we go out here just making sweeping declarations that he'll be on with us.
Well, I just
Let's go
asked
check in.
him, so if he's
All
not,
right,
I mean, we're ready for it.
we'll
So
see.
if
Do
Joey's
we
not
just
here
stay here
tomorrow,
live?
100% his fault.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. There you go. Just pass on the blame. As always, I want to thank everybody for watching and listening all the way through. For myself, for Dave, thank you. We'll see you next time. Adios.